Hello. Excuse me. I always open it with a yawn. It's not voluntary. It just happens. So I kind of liked what I did last time, and I think I'm going to do it again. This time I know where my phone is, so I don't have to pull up my iPad, which is amazing. I kind of see. Um, okay. Actually, I think I'm going to do it a little different this time. So I'm going to pick a deck first because I'm going to pull before and after the major of the number. That's what I'm going to do. Instead of reducing the number and then pulling a spread. That is what I'll do. And then we'll see what comes through. But I feel like I should pick a deck first. Excuse me. I kind of want to use the Dreams of Gaia, but I also kind of want to use a deck I haven't used in a while. I'll go for the Witch's Tarot because I was actually thinking about maybe I'll do that too. It should be down here. Right there. Oh, I haven't used the Kawaii Tarot in a minute. Kawaii. I watch anime. I'm an anime guy. And I was on Crunchyroll. This video isn't sponsored by Crunchyroll. But I was on Crunchyroll and they have dramas on Crunchyroll. And I was just flipping through the recommended the other day and a drama popped up. And it's it's a drama. It's like if you're a virgin when you turn 30, then you become a wizard. And I was like, okay, because they had me at magic at wizards. I was like, all right. But it's so cute. It's so cute. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should watch more dramas. Ooh, it's like Cherry Magic 30 something something. I don't know the title. But it's adorable and it's funny. And it's like real life. I'm kidding. So I have the Kawaii Tarot and I have the Witch's Tarot. So, because I could always, we'll see. I'll just flow with it. I'll just go with it. We'll see what happens. And if I don't like it, maybe I'll do something else. Also, in my personal life, I guess, this year is looking to be quite interesting. Well, I guess at the same time, it's not that it's not looking to be interesting, but I didn't plan on traveling this year. And, if the workings of reality abide, I'll be able to travel this year. But when I started a job, like one of the things I wanted to be able to do was to afford to travel. And so I had the dates for my trip to the UK. And then in August, I'll be going to Canada. So hopefully I can also see at least one or two of my favorite Canadians while I'm in Canada, because that would absolutely make my year. The Three of Pentacles and the Eight of Pentacles being 11 Pentacles. That's the Justice of Pentacles. Justice of Pentacles, it feels like it's that Justice of Pentacles, it feels like that Justice and the Ace of Coins coming out on either side of the High Priestess. But if you notice, it's like if we start at the 3 where we're building something up, eventually it's almost like there's a higher purpose that comes in. Now, this higher purpose can be an excuse me, an idea or a vision that we have for the future or that we have for our lives. And so we make conscious choices and decisions to kind of sort of like fall in line with that. This could also be like once we get to a certain point, we kind of sort of realize something, and all things work for the fruitioning of that thing in a very experiential way. So potentially, it could be a lot of things. These messages are general, and so if it's not yours, don't take it. Take it as it resonates. Remember, use your discernment, use your intuition, and to do your best to separate your anxiety, your fear, your trauma, your worries, your desperation for a future that you crave, and your just absolutely primal desire to protect yourself from some of the things that have happened to you and that may be happening. Um, because sometimes when those are at the forefront of our minds, can miss. Um, we can miss, or we can misperceive or misjudge, misevaluate some things, not all things. And it'll be a balance. Um, and it's a balance that I feel we learn, especially. So, oh, look, the Eight of Pentacles on the cut again. This time the tower is at the bottom, but the tower was already there. But I kind of like the Eight of Pentacles in the tower. I feel like the Eight of Pentacles and the tower coming off of the Three of Pentacles and the Eight of Pentacles, it's a pivot moment. But it feels like it's a very transferable skills energy. Like there are things that you'll be able to use from everything that you've already experienced, or things that you'll be able to take with you. I saw this one quote probably like a year ago now, or two. No, it was less than two. And it said, we don't start over from scratch, we start from experience. And I love that. Ooh, oh, Justice and the Seven of Swords. Okay, at the cut. That's interesting. Justice and the Seven of Swords, though, it feels like knowing when it's time to cut your losses, or that could be one way to interpret it. The Knight of Pentacles with the Queen of Wands at the bottom of the deck, and the Hierophant behind that Queen of Wands. It feels like the Queen of Wands has the fire that the seed needs to grow. So the Knight already has the fire at its back. The Hierophant is here. I almost want to say it's the energy of a promise. Maybe more so, it's the energy of knowing what this seed has the potential to become. So he only needs to find the water and the air. I don't know. The vision is important. But that also makes sense because it feels like the vision could be the halo on top of that Eight of Pentacles in the Kawaii Tarot. So I have both of these shuffled. I have my little paradise. Paradise. 55. Okay, cool, cute. 55 is Temperance and the Hierophant. 55, I don't think it's in. No, 55 is the Six of Zones, which is the Six of Air. Which is interesting because the Six of Swords is usually that card of movement from more troubled waters to calmer waters. I was at work Friday, and I've been collecting water for months now. For months. And there's this area where there are two tanks that there's it's computerized, so you have to use a computer basically to turn on the water. And so I get set up at one spot for everywhere that when we sample water, the rate at which we test and sample the water is much, 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 much less than the rate at which water enters the tank when they're like, because these tanks are huge whenever they're making something. And I have this 5 gallon bucket compared to a huge tank, right? So I put my little apparatus on the hose to allow only a certain amount of flow, right? And then I can control like how much flow there is, but I can't increase the maximum. Oh my gosh, is this resonance? Uh Somebody was talking about resonance like Thursday. Um anyway, so I can't increase the maximum to the full maximum, but blah blah blah, whatever. So I get set up. This is the first time I've been doing it for months now. I set up at one tank and I go to the board, I go to the computer, and I'm like, oh, let me make sure I'm at the right tank before I turn on the water. So I go out and I look at the wrong tank and I'm like, oh, okay, that's the number. So I go back to the board and I turn on the tank and I hear just like a whole bunch of water. I'm like, oh my gosh. And for like a half a second, I'm like, what do I do? And then with the other half of that second, I'm like, turn off the water, dummy. I was like, okay. So I hurry up and turn off the water. Water is like starting to run out of the little room. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. So I go and I get one of the guys and I'm like, hey, so like I was set up at one tank and I accidentally turned on the wrong tank and water went everywhere. And he was like, well, as long as the water didn't get into the tank, we're fine. And it didn't. So thankfully, it wasn't a disaster. It was just a little bit of a mess. Why am I talking about that? I don't remember. But yeah, so then I turned on the right tank and everything proceeded as normal. But I've never done that before. And I looked, I went to go look to make sure I turned on the right tank. But when I sample water, I always do that tank first. But this time I did it backwards. I did the other tank first. And so my brain was just like in too many places, I guess. But yeah, I really don't remember why I started talking about that. Temperance in the Hierophant, 55, 6 water, because it was talking about water. That's why. And I was like, what does this mean? Because I'm that type of person. Sometimes I'm like, what does this mean? Sometimes I'm like, this doesn't mean anything. Sometimes I'm like, this won't mean anything. Sometimes. um, have I been seeing 55 a lot? I don't think so. Well, 55 is the number that came out, and it's the six of zones, which is interesting because the Knight of Pentacles already had the fire, and I said he needed the water and the air. So the water or the air is the six of air. And if we take the temperance component, and the Hierophant was under the Queen of Wands, and the Hierophant energy just came out again. Interesting. Um, if we can temperance the fire, but I don't know if it would give a Queen of Water since we had a Queen of Fire, or if it would give a King of Water since we had a Queen of Fire. I don't know which of those temperance correspondences are correct. Um, but this, in theory, through some alchemy, because we got to temperance the fire that we already had to get the water that we need. Um, which does almost remind me of the principle of correspondence, where like heavenly fire is water on earth. Um, and I like that just in general, because the Queen of Wands, it can be easy for the Queen of Wands in her shadow to be very self centered. But with that principle of correspondence, it's like if we go to the Queen of Wands as that like really attractive individual, it's like it doesn't matter how attractive you are. If you aren't that great of a person, people aren't going to want to be with you. And the people who do want to be with you may only be with you for your physical appearance, and then that's it. Then they're gone. They get what they want and they leave. Some of them put up with it, some of them tolerate it. And then, anyway, let's reel it back. But there needs to be a balance there. I feel like the Queen of Wands, not in her shadow, understands that. I feel like any energy not in their shadow would understand that. Not super self-absorbed, not only considering the self, and not only it's not only, but it's not so self-centered that it operates at the detriment of others with no care or worry or whatever. Because it's like you can be primorally. Hey Shayna, hola, ¿cómo estás? Buenos días, konnichiwa. It's like you can be focused on yourself while also considerate of others and considerate of how your actions impact others. You know what I mean? So am I gonna go with the left deck? I actually, from the left deck, I'm gonna grab the fifth card. One, two, three, four, five from the top. From the right one, I'm gonna grab the 50th card from the top, and I'll look for the Hermit in the left, Temperance on the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, that's 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 50, 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 50. Oh my gosh. Can I even count? I had a dream last night. The last dream I had last night, I was playing volleyball. And it was so weird because I couldn't, like, I was serving the ball. I served it. I was up to serve. I served the ball and I didn't hit it hard enough for it to go onto the other side of the court. And I'm pretty sure in volleyball, like, you can do that, what, 3 times before it just goes to the other side of the net. And so it rolled over there. And I was like, give me the ball back. It's time for me to attempt my second serve. And like on the other side, like they were like, "Oh, like is it our turn?" I was basically the only person playing volleyball. The rest of the people were just there. I'm like, "Okay." But eventually somebody, the person who was serving on the other side or the person whose turn it would be next to serve on the other side, they kind of served it back to me in a way. But they didn't serve it, they just threw it back and I caught it. It bounced once. And then I tried to serve it again and it like went behind me and I caught it and I was like, oof, there goes my second attempt. And then I was like, okay, I need to adjust. Like I need to it harder. I need to hit it harder to get it on the other side. And then I served it and it just like went off to the side. I don't know what it means. I'm garbage at volleyball, apparently. Why am I talking about that? I don't remember. I don't know. Maybe it'll come out. Maybe it won't. The bottom of the deck, the King of Pentacles, the Five of Swords, and the Three of Cups. This is interesting. The King of Pentacles, the Five of Swords, and the Three of Cups, it almost feels self-sacrificial in a way. Because this feels like the King of Pentacles understands that in order for his land to thrive, and not just survive, but to thrive, like the whole kingdom needs to, at the very least, survive, more ideally, survive comfortably, and then what most ideally thrive. And so it's like the king will go without in order to create, or the king will like take less in order to it's distribute but to make things more friendly, you know what I mean? I've never necessarily read the Five of Swords that way, but it's because the Ace of Swords is pointed down while the Four of Swords is pointed up. And I think the King of Pentacles also understands it's like the things that cause unrest within his kingdom. I don't know. We will see. Hello, Steph. How are you? Good morning. It's the Kawaii Tarot. Oops. Almost dropped the box. Kawaii. Kawaii na. Konodeku. Let's look for that Hierophant. The Queen of Pentacles is with the Queen. Oh, snap. Hold up. Wait. This is interesting. So it's the Nine of Swords into the Seven of Swords. See, and this is, it feels like with the Nine of Swords, it's that stereotypical, like lots of thoughts on your mind, maybe difficult to sleep at night. But again, because the Seven of Swords came out with, what was that card? Justice. The Seven of Swords came out with Justice at the cut in the Witch's Tarot. And it felt like that energy of like knowing when to walk away. Because all of these are pointed in one direction. And then here in this seven, it's like, well, maybe I should go the other way. Or it's looking in the other direction. And then after that, we have the Star, which is the 8 that bridges the 7 and the 9. Because it's a 17. Excuse me. Oh, well, hopefully you get over it sooner rather than later. And, excuse me, keep taking care of yourself. This is the 8 that bridges like the 9, 8, 7, but the 8 comes after the 7. But what I like about this, because again, like this is a question of potentially going in a different direction. And we go from 7 to 17. So there is a 10, which is the completion and the beginning of something new that we add on to the 7, which is it's an energy that came out last time I pulled cards. Oh, look, there's the 8 of Pentacles again. Okay. I was trying to put the cards down, but I put them down in reverse. Well, between the 8 of Pentacles and the 9 of Swords, is the 6 of Swords and the 2 of Cups. See, this is that energy. So it's almost the one where I was like, it's like you're getting everything together first, and then you sort of have that idea or that realization that all things or that many things that you've already done can work together to put you in a different direction. And there may, like, it's not the 10, it's not the end. So there are probably going to be other things that you need to incorporate or learn. But if you were to step away, you wouldn't be starting over from scratch. You would be starting from the experiences that you've already built up. And it is a little bit of a portal energy too. It's a little bit of that closed circle 10 energy, new beginning. 7, 8, and then the 2 of Cups and the 6 of Swords is after that. That's like half of a laurel wreath. The laurel wreath symbolizes victory, but it's like this movement, this transition is only half of the victory. Like the other half is to be claimed on the other side. And with the 2 of Cups, it just feels a lot more like copacetic. It feels a lot more agreeable to the soul, to the mind, the body, the heart, to all. Right? So after that Star, it's the Queen of Pentacles. And we've already seen the King of Pentacles, right? And then the Queen of Cups and the King of Cups are right next to each other. So we're going to have to, and it's interesting that these two come out after the Star, because the Star, it's more of a healing than alchemy energy, but the Star and Temperance, the Star and Temperance kind of sort of read similarly. in some ways, but very differently in other ways. But this is like how we get that water that we're gonna have to do some alchemy to make from the fire or something. We'll see. I ain't made it to the temperance side yet, but fever dreams. And we just entered Pisces season. I saw on what Twitter yesterday. Somebody was like, Pisces season just started, and these dreams are already crazy. What's happening? Are they like? I was having dreams with like some really annoying people for 2 days, and then it didn't happen yesterday. The first day is the one I talked about when it was like there was somebody who was like super violent for no reason and they wanted to change. And so someone who was like defenseless came into their life. And it was almost like I was like this person's guardian angel, like on their shoulder, like, okay, like this person is defenseless, don't do anything crazy. And this person was like, hi, I'm defenseless. And then the other person was like, hey, defenseless. I'm like, I just watched because I can't do anything. And then they got taken down. It's like, see, it's working against you that you're like this. And then the next dream, the next night I had a dream with this. It was represented by this person that I knew growing up who was teased and bullied by literally everybody, who had a absolutely garbage experience. He's African. He was born in Africa. The rest of his siblings were born in America. And so I know like at one point the bullying got so bad that he went back for a little bit and then he came back. And like seeing, and we went to the same church too. So seeing his experience, I felt bad for him. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be another bully. I'll be your friend. We don't really like, we didn't really talk too much or hang out, and we weren't really in the same classes or anything. But anytime I saw him, I made sure that like, I was friendly. And like, he's not that bad. Like, I don't think anybody is necessarily that bad of a person. But it was represented by him in the dream. And I was having like, it was such a busy dream. It was very active, like in a fun way. My luck was amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening to me. And he was there. And then at one point, like he started to get really annoying and jealous. And I was like, you're right here with me. Like, I'm your friend. Like, I'm sharing these experiences with you. Like, why are you being like this? And I gave him like opportunity after opportunity to like not ruin my day. And I was like, you know what? If this is the mood you're going to be in, I'm going to go. I ain't got time for this. It was weird. And then the night after that, I don't even know what I dreamed about. So. Wait, hold up. Yeah, okay. So the Queen of Cups and the King of Cups. After the Queen of Cups and the King of Cups, there are so many just sidebars in this. It's the Hanged Man and the World with the Sun and the Ace of Swords. The Hanged Man, the World, the Sun, and the Ace of Swords, and Justice, and the Ten of Cups, and the Ten of Pentacles. Oh my gosh, with the Fool. What? Oh, you can't even see. It is gorgeous. It is literally gorgeous. The Hanged Man, the World. It's a 1221. Which are both threes, which is the Empress. So because these are both threes, Empress energies, it feels like the hang up is us. And it's a block within the sacral, solar, probably entire chakratic system, but focused more on the sacral, solar of the self. It's in the sacral because, just like the water, when you hook the thing up to it, if I were to hook up the thing that I use to fill a 5-gallon bucket to those tanks that are huge, it would take so long to fill up. It would take hours. It would probably take longer than a shift, honestly. Maybe I could do that math. Because it takes maybe like 5, I don't know how big those tanks are in terms of, I've seen some of them that say the gallons on them. But those are huge. Like there's a whole upstairs mezzanine, and they go from up on the mezzanine all the way to the floor. But it takes me about, if I were to just let the water fill up in the bucket, maybe like 3 to 5 minutes. Anyway, it's like there's a limiter on the flow in the sacral. There's a cap on potential, there's a cap on what we allow or whatever. And then when it comes to the solar plexus, it's like that which is allowed to flow isn't necessarily expressed with the solar plexus energy. So that's why it's kind of sort of twofold around this empress. And that's what creates the hanged man. It's lots of stifled flow, like all over the place. But there is a certain completion, and the world would be a whole laurel crown. It's a whole laurel. I mean, it's the entire wreath. Like that was half of the laurel wreath, and the laurel wreath is like usually just like a little bit of laurel. Like that wreath is thick. What about? Oh my gosh! Let me, let me- um. Oof. See, I distract myself. But it's like it feels like with those limiters off, when we address those things, and it goes back to the cards that came out last time I was live, I believe. Or was it the time before that? It was the time before the last time, because the last time I pulled the spread. Um, what was it? It was something, the Hanged Man and the Tower. The Seven of Pentacles, the Hanged Man and the Tower. And the Hanged Man, it represented an area of blockage that we couldn't get by, or that we couldn't get past. And then the Tower is when we start making those choices and decisions that Hanged Man energy keeps us from making, where we actually start to, it liberates us from that rigid structure. Which is interesting because the Eight of Pentacles in this deck, and I'll pull it up again so you can see it. It is, oh, look, literally right there. It is a little tower-esque. But again, if we take this stuff and we move it, or if we apply it somewhere new, we're not starting from scratch. If we have a tower moment, we're starting from experience, the experiences that we've had. But there also needs to be an understanding that the experiences that we've had is not indicative of the complete body of experiences that the world is capable of providing to us. And when we believe that what we've already experienced is what is all that we're capable of experiencing, that's how we really get stuck in hangman energy and we don't go anywhere. But this is a hangman energy that will dream, and that will find some kind of peace in a dream, and it feels very like addictive personality because it'll find things to escape its reality, or it'll find things to put it in that dreamlike state. um but it won't do anything, or it's like it doesn't actually believe that it could be reality. And so it's an energy that escapes to dreams, or tries to escape, either escape to a dream or escape from reality. But either way, it feels like it's not that it isn't grounded, because it feels extremely grounded, like subterranean. But it's not, it doesn't bring anything new or different in. And so it's like if there's no new ingredients, if there are no new materials, then of course you're only going to be able to cook, bake, or make the same things. With, there are many different kinds of breads, and there are sweet breads, and there are all savory breads, and all different kinds. You can put the same ingredients together in different ratios and quantities, and you can use different qualities, I guess, of ingredients to make different dishes, but it's all recombinations of the same thing. And so again, it's like you don't there may be some dishes that you make that taste better. And so maybe you'll get like that Six of Swords, or maybe you'll get like a Six of Wands. I can't remember what my minor world card is. But it's like you'll get a minor world card energy, but you won't necessarily get a major arcana world card energy. Or it'll be like a minor world that reverts. It's like, oh, I thought I was over this, but here I am back again. This, it breaks it. And it's the 1221. This is the hangman upright. Because if you flip the 12, it becomes 21, right? If you put this one after the 2, you get the 21. This world is the hangman upright. It's the hangman actually living those things that it would see and feel in a dream. And then we come into the sun card, which is gorgeous. I feel like the sun it's experiencing and beginning to experience. It feels like a sunrise where things start to improve. Like when the sun rises, the sun doesn't rise on one town or on one country or for one person. The sun rises for the entire world that is facing outside of the sun. You know what I mean? As the earth shifts and moves, it rises for that entire face of the earth. And so it does feel like, again, coming off of this world card energy, it feels, I want to say prolific, but I feel like there's a meaning of the word prolific that I don't necessarily mean. Like, not prolific as far as like, oh my gosh, but prolific as far as like proliferating. You know what I mean? Hey Siri, define prolific.
Prolific means of a plant, animal, or person producing much fruit or foliage or many offspring.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Do you want to hear the remaining one?
No, thank you. Yeah, this is literally what I wanted. Present in large numbers or quantities plentiful. What is the other one? Maybe that's not. What's that other word? It's not prolific. It don't matter. That's the word I want. With the sun energy is prolific. It it expands well beyond. It expands well beyond the confines of these two rows of pentacles. I love how simple this deck is sometimes. And then we come into the Ace of Swords with Justice. It feels like the Ace of Swords, and we had the Justice of Pentacles before with the Three of Pentacles and the Eight of Pentacles. I haven't seen the Three of Pentacles yet. But it feels like the Ace of Swords and Justice, it feels like an understanding that broadens to the point where it reads like where we're able to see outside of ourselves, where we're able to see outside of ourselves in the way of like where everything isn't about us. As far as like, how could this happen to me? How could that happen to me? Like, how does this benefit me? How does this not benefit me? How does this get me closer to what I want and where I want to go? It feels like justice. And again, coming off of that Queen of Wands energy, it's not that it isn't self centered or self focused in the way where it's focused on the self, but it's capable of understanding the environment around the self, right? It's like if you have all of the ingredients and you put them together for a cake and you have your bowl, you've mixed it, and then you set the bowl in the freezer, you're not going to get a cake because you're supposed to put it in the oven if we're talking about temperance, right? And so it's like there are many things that matter. And I also love that we had a Justice of Pentacles before. And I also love, so this is the Six of Air, and air precedes the earth. It's like the last, well, earth is the last element for me because it depends on the water, the fire, and the air in order for it to grow and develop. Like, not necessarily to seed it, but in order for it to grow, it requires the fire, the water, and the air. And the air is the thought that precedes the thing. Oh, look, and there's the Ace of Swords. I feel like justice is also an energy of like understanding going back to the same thing about like if you get everything together and you put it in the freezer instead of the oven, or if you put it in the oven instead of the freezer, you may not get what you want. If you're trying to make some kind of ice, some kind of cold delicacy, and it's primarily like, water based, if you put it in the oven, the water's going to evaporate if you leave it in there long enough, and it's going to be empty when you pull it out. There's something about understanding, and it feels like almost like the King of Swords in the mystical manga tarot when it came out with the Eight of Wands. But it's just understanding how one thing impacts another. And again, like that Queen of Wands that is to temperance out to a watery element, it's to not be so focused on the self that there is no consideration or regard for how it affects others. And that goes back to the Nine of Pentacles with Judgment that came out at the hilt of the spread I did last time I was live. When it's like, if you want to be a rock, or if you want to be an island, or if it is your path to be a rock or an island, then you will be a rock or an island. But there are many things and many interactions that actually like create humanity. But it's humanity in the sense of like how one person relates to another person. And it's very like almost like 11th house in Aquarius in that way. And it's like, this person is my electrician, that person is my kid's teacher, this person is my boss, that person is, there's this cafe that I really love, and they're the barista at the cafe, or the barista or whatever. And it's like it's all these things, and then those people are connected to other people, and those people are connected to other people. And it's almost like a 6 degrees of separation. Like that all together creates the oneness that is humanity. It's not necessarily found in one individual. And so whenever we try to completely individualize to the point of isolation, it removes us from that network. And then in us being removed from that network, it's almost like now you're unplugged from the earth and all of the things that the earth is capable of naturally providing for you with that Empress frequency that was like in the crossroads between the hangman and the world right now. It's like when you remove yourself from that network, you cut off and stifle that energetic flow. And a lot of times we do it for the sake of, or I've heard, I guess, people do it for the sake of like a kind of sort of survival and self-preservation or whatever. It's like this world is not blah, 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 whatever. But it's almost like we don't realize with Justice and the Ace of Swords, we don't understand completely the ramifications of stuff like that because we don't see fully how everything is sort of interconnected. And it's like if we did, there are things that we would value more, and there are things that we would appreciate more, and the sun would rise in those areas as well. And then after that, we have the 10 of Cups and the 10 of Pentacles with the Fool card. Excuse me. So this is like abundant, fulfilled, brand new beginnings. It's a whole new experience. Oof. I think sometimes there's a difference between being stuck and not moving. And that's another lesson that the hangman teaches. Just like not all who wander are lost, not all who are in a time of non-movement are stuck. You know what I mean? Oh, what? Oh, what? The Page of Swords with the King of Swords coming after that Fool card. I love the Page of Swords with the King of Swords coming after that Ace of Swords that was paired with Justice. Because that feels like there's some evolution between the Page and the King here. But it's a Page into a King of Swords that bases all of its logic and knowing outside of what is immediately perceivable. So everything I was saying about the Ace of Swords and justice being an understanding of how the self interacts with the world and the position that the self holds in the interconnected web and weave of everything. And when we try to compress everything down on the self, it's like there are things that are lost. Things that if you take a self-centered point of view, it's just like things that that point of view are incapable of making so explicitly clear that it's easy to sort of get and understand. Because again, it's like, we are powerful, we are creators, we do hold boundless potential, but we are all of that in a world full of other people who are also that. You know what I mean? And what does that mean? I don't know. Okay, I really need to get this thing. So I just saw the Empress. I'm skipping it. I ain't talking about it. The towers with the moon. That's interesting. Where is this? Is this Hierophant gonna be at the top? Oh, I found the Hierophant. Oh, this is interesting. Ooh. Okay. There we go. You can stay there. I don't care. So the Hierophant is in between the Page of Pentacles and the Six of Cups. And I said that's interesting because the Six of Swords had the other half of that laurel wreath. And the Six of Swords was immediately after that Eight of Pentacles. I'm going to pull that too. With the Six of Swords and the Six of Cups together, you get both halves of the laurel wreath. And again, the Six of Swords is with this Eight of Pentacles. And the reason why I pulled that again is because the Page of Pentacles is sitting under that halo. Eve, how are you doing? Good morning. What time is it? Oh, I need to get some brunch fist. Okay. And the Page of Pentacles is sitting under this. So it almost, Matthew, how are you? I was literally thinking about you before I started this. I was like, I wonder how Matt's doing. I haven't seen his name pop up in a minute, but also I haven't been live like I used to be. So I thought about you before I did this, Matthew. Not in any kind of way in particular. Just like, how's Matt doing? So it goes back. This is an energy of how we're shaped and molded by the experiences that we have, and how a lot of times our view of the self is a reflection of the experiences that we have. It's like if all of your life people tell you that you're one thing, oops, eventually you start to believe it. Part of the new drama that I started watching, dude was like, everybody's always seen me as this super attractive person. And so because of that, I've gotten a lot of attention, but no one's able to see anything beyond that. Like to other people, I'm just a face. I'm just a hot piece of butt, right? Very Queen of Wands in a way. And there's something about, because this is a page, there's something about maybe not necessarily having the opportunity to express or to develop. I like develop since it is a page. Maybe not having an opportunity to develop all of those other things that we are. And then with the Hierophant coming out with the Six of Cups, it almost is. I love, like, not all court cards are as happy as this page, so I do love that. Um, There is something like when I talked about the Six of Cups coming out in my personal read for the year, I thought it would be more like traumas in a way. Mm. And that was because I was fresh off of the, oh my gosh, like when I go back to work, it's going to be, ah. And then I went back to work and it wasn't even like that. Like I'm a lot more capable than I thought I was. I'm a lot less impacted, I guess, than I used to be for sure. So I'm a lot more capable of things that I just wasn't capable of because of the state of the Pentacles. That was the composition of Patrick at the time. But the state of the Pentacles have changed and they've rearranged. So now I can see things that I couldn't see before. Right. Thanks to the power of the swords that were the lasers that got the cataracts out of my eyes and that put in a new lens or whatever. Anyway, there is something about it feels like it's going back. And see, even the book and the Hierophant. Okay, well, the book. Oh, and we do have the Eight of Pentacles. So the bookmark in the book is it's pretty deep into that book, but it's not complete. Oh, look, 5-6. I didn't even see that. This is interesting. So the Four of Pentacles was flipped over in the deck. And if I count down 6-5-4 or 4-5-6, it was that Four of Pentacles. But I feel like that Four of Pentacles, it goes back to everything that I was saying about um, how if we're only recognized for one thing or if we're always told something, we kind of sort of start to believe it. I think it also goes back to because it is Earth that stifled Empress, the imprisoned Empress energy that's heavily, heavily blocked by both the sacral and the solar. Because it's almost, again, it's like the things that make it through the sacral don't necessarily get expressed at the solar. So it's almost like it had never left in the first place. Right? It's like if the seed sprouts and then immediately dies because there's not enough sunlight, it's not like it never sprouted in the first place, but and I know a lot of people don't necessarily like to talk about potentials. Um, but hey, I mean, I feel like we talked about that before too. Um, but what comes out after that Six of Cups, it was the Six of Wands. Oh, snap. The Six of Cups and the Six of Wands, the water and the fire. We're probably going to have to alchemize some fire to get the water that this needs. And it's also interesting that the Knight of Pentacles, like the Three of Pentacles and the Eight of Pentacles came out, the Justice of Pentacles at the cut. The Knight of Pentacles came out of the Witch's Tarot with the Queen of Wands at the bottom. The first card that was at the bottom of the deck was the King of Pentacles. And now we have the Page here. So not only is it like Pentacles heavy, but also we haven't seen the Queen of Pentacles. Yeah, we did. The Queen of Pentacles was the first face card after the Star right there. The Star and the Queen of Pentacles, and it immediately went into the King and Queen, or the Queen and King of Cups. After that, Queen of Pentacles. But anyway, it's interesting that the water and the fire come out together. But I feel like it goes back to that. And then the Hermit, so it was like a 6-6-9-3. So it was the Six of Cups, and then it was the Six of Wands. And then I saw a 9, which is the Hermit. And I was like, oh, snap. And then I saw a 3, which is the Three of Wands. Well, that's a lot of fire. And then in the Hermit, it's maintained. But with the Hermit encloses the fire. so that it can be used to illuminate. Because fire can do many things, but by putting it in the lantern, by putting it in the lantern, we limit some of the things that it can do while increasing its ability to do that other thing. And it reminds me of alchemy in that way, where it was a question of like, what if alchemy isn't necessarily about changing one thing into something else? What if it's more about purifying? It's about making one thing as that thing as it can be, so that when it interacts with something else, that one thing out of the many things that could happen is more guaranteed to happen. It's a study of like interactions. And then I was thinking about like, well, if you were to molecularly change something, you would have to like inject protons and neutrons into the core, into the nucleus of the atom, while bypassing the field of electrons. And if electrons have negative charge, it's like, oof, being human. When we're surrounded by so much negativity, how do we welcome in more positivity into the core of who we are? How do we allow positivity to, and I guess neutrality through the neutrons, to penetrate through the field of negativity and the cloud and the shroud of who knows where those electrons actually are, to build out the nucleus? And as we build out the nucleus, it'll naturally sort of like pull more electrons to balance it out. Anyway. Anyway, anyway, anyway. You just woke from a dream about Neil Carter. What? Hey, Holly, how you doing? Oh, Ariel, how you doing? But there's something in this where it almost feels like it's not about necessarily transmuting the fire into water. It feels like the fire and the water are the same. But that makes sense because water is the embodiment of fire. So it's almost like the fire precedes the water, precedes the air, precedes the earth, because the fire and the water together make the air, and then you need the fire, the water, and the air to have this earth blossom in the middle. Anyway. Oh wait, I want to keep these out. So the Page of Pentacles and the Six of Cups is coming out on the Hermit side of this. And I guess with the Six of Swords, it is a question of like, how do you change a mind that's already set? And can you? I guess the question is, can you change a mind that's already set? And to that, I would say we literally just had South Node Sagittarius, North Node Gemini. So if there were a time to put being a little bit more malleable into practice, it might be now. Because the learning for that nodally happened, in the previous 18 months and some change. Because now it's all about North Node Taurus being the root of the experience and South Node Scorpio being the root of, in a lot of ways, the self. And so it may bring up some like self and the experience types of things. But also, I feel like there's this really beautiful potential to experience things that we haven't experienced before, and to also live and exhibit and be and embody parts of the self that didn't necessarily have their moments and opportunities to shine before. And the world is continuously waxing more and more and more accepting of a lot of things, and there are conversations that are happening more and more and more. And something, it's fine. We don't have to I don't have to go there. Ooh. So the card that I'm looking for is literally at the bottom of this deck. Temperance is right there. So, and Temperance came out with the water that we need. Temperance and the Page of Cups. This is all I get because there's no card before Temperance. I could pull the card off the top of the deck. The card at the top of the deck is the Knight of Pentacles again. Okay. I'll take it. Page of Pentacles, Page of Cups. Under the Page of Cups is the Magician. And I like that the Magician, this water, is the last element. The Knight of Pentacles was already here. When the Knight of Pentacles came out, the Queen of Wands was at the bottom of the deck. Again, Earth needs water, fire, and air. The air is the Six of Swords, Six of Air, Six of Zones energy. We have this, oops, ow, ow. The Six of Cups and the Page of Cups, which again, I feel like it carries an energy. Like it feels brand new with the Page of Cups. It feels like it's something that's been inside of us, but again, it feels like it wasn't anything that necessarily was able to be expressed or was able to even be like lived. Because the Hanged Man again came out with the World card, and there was that energy where it could easily fall into something addictive. But there was an energy of like a dream that was never able to be realized for whatever reason. But immediately following the World, it's like coming into a space where it actually becomes the experience. I thought Temperance would turn us. I didn't know if Temperance would turn us out a Queen of Cups since we had the Queen of Wands, or a King of Cups since we had the Queen of Wands, and it turned us out a Page. So it isn't necessarily one for, well, I'm not going to say it's not necessarily one for one, because the Page of Cups can be where the Queen of Wands is in terms of like, I feel like it is an energy that's a little less compromising. Twitty! Oh my gosh, Twitty, thank you for the donation the other day. I appreciate it. I told my mom, and she was like, why that amount? I was like, I don't know. She was like, well, it is the year 22. And then I was like, oh, okay, it's the date. I get it. um, it feels like it's a little, it feels like it's less compromising in the way that it's to be more sure. It's like you can be very sure of yourself, but not necessarily know how to express it. Or maybe you haven't had, it's like when you're confident, maybe confident isn't necessarily the word. I like the word sure. Like when you know who you are, but you haven't necessarily been or expressed all of that. Because you can be that, but you can be like a very watered down and diluted version of that. It's like the Page of Cups is, it's the invitation to start being more. And it feels like if it were a pay, or if it was the Queen of Wands with like the King or Queen of Wands, then they would be on more equal footing. So it would kind of sort of be more about the self sort of transitioning, where we're in this space where like we're expressing ourselves and we're being ourselves, but maybe we're going to be asked to evolve or change in a little bit. Maybe things are going to develop in a way where we actually again change and move. But with it being the Queen of Wands and the Page of Cups, it's about getting that expression up to her level in a way, or just bringing out more of her, if that makes sense. And I also like I like that the Magician is here for another reason besides just it being, we now have the element. This is a confirmation that water was the last key, or that the water and the air are going to be working together for the earth. Um, But also when it came to the Empress blockage, it feels like the magician is able to create. But in that way, it also does feel like a warning. In this magician card, I feel like it opened. There's the Emperor. Wait, the Emperor is behind the magician. Love it. The Emperor behind the magician, it's a sort of decisiveness. And it's like a self accountability, and it's the way that you carry yourself through the decisions that you make. Anyway, with all the roses at the top of that, I don't think the magician is necessarily going to be in a space of manifesting or making things or encouraging things to be without consideration for others in the environment and the world around it. That won't be so self focused that it sees no problem with operating at the detriment of everybody around it. Because again, it's like with the King of Pentacles, the Five of Swords, and the Three of Cups, the King of Pentacles understands that if he thrives while the world around him suffers, eventually that decay will reach his kingdom. Because the Six of Pentacles is in that suit. And the Six of Pentacles is a card of reciprocity. And I don't know. Well, I guess the Two of Cups is a card of reciprocity. The Four of Wands can be a card of reciprocity. Is there a Swords card that has an energy of reciprocity? The Seven of Swords is like stealing more often than not. So, um, but anyway, hello, Rins. How are you doing? I'm like probably behind on the chat. Oh, look! Oh, I didn't even notice that. Oh, so when I looked at this, because the other side is brighter, I only saw this. How to play? I can hold it up like this. I saw this. And I was like, oh, look, the magician is creating that halo that we've been seeing all over the place. But there's two halos actually. But I guess you could argue, yeah, and I'll make this argument. The magician's wand is on one half of this. So it feels like as the magician traces this half of the infinity sign, this one is mirrored and matched. And I'll make that argument because of the Ace of Swords and Justice, because of the energy of the self that exists in the web of the universe around the self. And how, when all things, like when that consideration is taken into place, there's an energy that's met in the environment. Again, because it's not disconnected from it, because it doesn't isolate and withdraw from the world around it. The world is a part of that creation. Earth and the sky and the wind and the hearts of others contribute. But when we disconnect ourselves and when we pull ourselves off of that support network, then it is more like, we kind of got to have to do everything on our own. Okay. It's been an hour. So the two cards that I pulled. Oh. So the fifth card from the Kawaii Tarot was the Ace of Pentacles. And that's interesting because I think I did say that Justice and the Ace of Swords, or was it the Ace? Somewhere when I was reading all of those Kawaii Tarot. Kirsty, hey, how you doing, Kizzy Cat? How you doing, Kizzy Cat? Also, like, anyway, it's fine. I got the dates for my trip, so I'll be flying out on the 27th of May, and I'll be coming back on like the 5th of June. So I'll be in Scotland for the first weekend and then Darlington, and then I'll be in London for that second weekend. And I guess I'll be in London for when the Queen's Jubilee or whatever is. Not or whatever, but I don't know which one it is. Anyway, that is happening, and I will accept that experience. But this energy came out where it felt like justice and the Ace of Pentacles on either side of the High Priestess. So I love that the Ace of Pentacles was the fifth card that came out. I also, it's interesting that the Ace of Pentacles comes out on the Hierophant side of this energy, because a lot of times the Hierophant is an energy that's even here, like with the Page of Pentacles and the Six of Cups with this Hierophant. A lot of times the Hierophant is so representative of the structures and the systems and organizations and all things order, that it's easy to look at how structure and order and organization doesn't serve a lot of people and to pin that on the Hierophant. But with the Hierophant coming out with this Ace of Pentacles, with the Page of Pentacles, it's like it's the Hierophant sort of like turning over. And maybe there are things that Hierophant energy was intended to be when the birth of the Hierophant came to be. And I know I've like this has come up before, where it's like the Hierophant was originally supposed to be one thing, but because of our dependence on Hierophant energy, because of our reliance upon Hierophant energy, we were the ones that kind of sort of made Hierophants emperors. And then the Hierophant ran with it. But at the same time, I think if we were to look at the archetype of Hierophant energy outside of organized religion, just like any Hierophantic system of belief that correlates and corresponds the natural world to worlds above, beyond, and outside of what is immediately and easily perceivable, that dependence on the Hierophant is still there in a lot of ways. For a lot of people, for some people who would probably say that they don't, but that's fine. We ain't got to go there. But it's like the Hierophant, because of the dependence on it, because the Hierophant itself was elevated, it grew beyond its boundary. And so now it's like the energy of the Hierophant itself has to shrink back. I don't know if it's necessarily going to shrink, but it has to retract, find the core of what it is, and like what it is, how and why it came to be, and how it serves, and then to expand from that point. And it's like it may be realizing that although it still holds the responsibility of being the liaison between the spiritual and physical worlds, and although there is a certain amount of structure and organization and um, like the marriage between things that Hierophant symbolizes, maybe there's a side of the Hierophant that we haven't necessarily experienced either. And I say that because of the Sun, the Ten of Cups. Oh, look, there's the High Priestess. Between the Page of Cups, the High Priestess is with the Page of Cups and the Nine of Wands. Oof. Hold up. There's the four. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. I don't even remember seeing all these cards. It's fine. I don't even remember what I was about to say. There was an energy. No, maybe it was this Page of Pentacles with the Six of Cups of like, even the Hierophant has sides to its energy that it was never really allowed to embody and be, because of what we needed Hierophant to be, because of what a lot of us needed the Hierophant to be. It didn't have room to be anything else. And it's kind of like, maybe we twisted the Hierophant. And then after the Hierophant twisted and got distorted, our dependence on it may have increased, or it certainly didn't decrease. And so it just continued to try to be what it is that we needed it to be. But we were asking for something from an energy that wasn't necessarily that wasn't necessarily intended to, or wasn't necessarily created to give us that energy. And it's like we do that with people. There's a certain amount, I ain't trying to necessarily trigger anybody, but it's like if there's love that we didn't experience in our lives, sometimes we try to get that love from other people whose responsibility it is not, like, it's not their responsibility to give us that love. One person can't necessarily give us the love that somebody else didn't give us, and nobody can give us the love that we have to give ourselves. But and it's almost because it's reminding me of how some people will bring out the worst in some people, but they'll be like the best with other people. And it's like because our desires and our need to get something from someone or something that cannot give it to us, it twists and distorts. And then, of course, it strains that relationship when they can't give it. But again, it's like it was never intended to. It was our dependence on it that tried to pull something out of it that it was not meant to be. So, did we twist Hierophant or did it twist itself? It's all interconnected anyway. Anyway, I'm like way behind on the chat. I'm sorry. The other card, so the 50th card on the other side was the King of Swords. And the King of Swords sits very like there are parallels between the king and the emperor. But the king sits much wider. The king is man spreading, but the king is also facing us, whereas the emperor is facing the future. What is oh, I don't know if I've ever noticed the falcon on the hand of that King of Swords. I don't think I ever noticed it before, and I don't think the lighting is gonna. He's holding the sword in one hand and the falcon in the other. It feels like this King of Swords is the King of Swords was actually at the bottom of this half. Like the King of Swords was the last card before the Page of Pentacles. So immediately outside the window, oops, of no, it was after this because it wasn't that many cards, wasn't it? I thought it was. Yeah, I remember seeing Judgment. Oh, these are the cards I just put back. The Six of Wands, the Hermit, and the Three of Wands. I thought the King of Swords was at the bottom. Anyway, doesn't matter. It feels like the King of Swords. This is interesting because the King of Swords, it's coming out with a little bit of an Odin energy because of the Falcon. It feels like the King of Swords is going to hand over the sword, but he's going to send his birds. But it's like to send it in a way to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes that he did. And it seems that like there's been a history of reversing dynamics rather than improving upon them. It's like if one person experiences something not great, then they want to turn around and inflict that not great feeling on the person that made them experience it. And if they can't do it to the person that made them experience it, they'll do it to other people. But it's kind of sort of that like two wrongs don't make a right energy. But it feels like more so than it's two wrongs don't make a right. It's like flipping it on its head isn't going to move us forward. And it's about coming into something new. And so if our intention is solely to be on the other side of that experience while others continue to have that experience, it may not be as energetically supported because all that does is like it preserves everything. It preserves the status quo. It just changes the side, like who's on the side of what. You know what I mean? This Page of Cups also does remind me, or it makes me think of the heart of humanity. And Temperance has a golden heart. You can see the. There we go. And maybe that's a piece that's been missing in a lot of ways. It's like our ability to be caring and compassionate for others measured or weighed against our desire for personal fulfillment. And it's like, again, with the King of Pentacles, the Five of Swords, and the Three of Cups being the first three cards at the bottom, it feels like we can be so heavy into survival that it's like, as long as I'm doing well, that's all I care about. Like, I might feel bad that somebody else isn't doing well, but I'm not, I got to look after myself. Or it's anything, any way in which we would take from someone else to add to our coffers, or any way in which we wouldn't mind setting other people back in order to further ourselves. It's just like the limit of compassion. It's like, I can care about you, but I can't care about you to the point where, like, I'm not doing whatever, you know what I mean? And anyway, uh, and it's no real news or whatever that selfishness has been so prolific for so long. And then, speaking of twisted hierophants, you can use selfishness and coordination with some twisted. Oh, let's not even get into it. We ain't even gonna get all the way into it. But that selfishness, it can play that selfishness when it's at the top of something, will use the mindset, the fears, the anxieties, the prejudices of people to further a lot of stuff. And again, the heart of humanity being what it was at that time for so many people, it allowed it. In some ways it still does, in some places more so than others, in some places more um easily observable than others, and some systems less hidden. Okay, well, I was gonna say, so like, is this the self, or is this like a personalized energy, or is this like macroscopic energy, is it microscopic energy? And I feel like, again, going to the web of how all things are interconnected, it's both. It's within us and it's outside of us, as the world itself is faced with a lot of questions in a lot of places, in a lot of different areas and sectors of living, um, about how it wants to move forward and what moving forward looks like, and if it wants to move forward or if it just wants to go back. Um, because in a way, it's like, ultimately it's the people who will decide. It's us who decide. We decide for ourselves, and then our collective decisions play out where it like goes up to whatever. And it almost is a little bit of, it's not necessarily about taking the blame for things that we didn't do, but there's some level of understanding that needs to be had somewhere. Yeah, because in temperance, like there's the 1 foot on the ground, 1 foot in the water, and it pours from cup to cup. So it is this like, it feels like it mirrors that, like there's an internal way that this is going to play out, and then there's the external way that it plays out. So poof, who knows? Excuse me. You wonder if the country could have a human design profile. It should be able to. Like, if you can get a birth chart for a country, you should be able to get a human design profile for it. Because I think with human design, you go out a certain amount of time before you were born to get the one part of the chart, the non-natal part of the chart. And so for a country, I don't know if you would just have to change like that day. I don't know if like the gestation period is the same as it is for an individual, but I don't know. I don't know. Ooh, same China. I was like, ooh, I think am I a manifester? I think I'm something like that. I'm something that, like, if you read it, if you knew me, you probably wouldn't think that. I feel like if you knew me, if you've known me, especially before who I am now, and you look at my human design chart, you would probably think that it doesn't necessarily line up. But there's just a whole bunch of stuff that like I wasn't. You know what I mean? So it actually kind of makes a lot of sense. But it wasn't a lot of things that I do. Um, very much so the type of just like I'm gonna just sit back and let y'all do whatever y'all want to do. I mean, I didn't really care. I was depressed. Having an existential crisis that lasted for literally years, in which I saw no future. So why would I do anything? But now I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I get it, yeah. Excuse me, I'm tired. I slept and slept and slept today. So I'm gonna remember to timestamp the phone messages this time. This is interesting though. I think there are things that we allow for ourselves. It's that allow the world to be rewritten. The world that we allow to be rewritten, it's our internal world as well as the world around us. Um, and so even I, when thinking of how things have gone, sometimes, ooh, look at strength card coming up with the halo. Strength in the 6 of Wands. Love that energy. Um, just because something was the way it was does not necessarily mean that will be that that's the way it will always be. Right. And I think I have more faith in the collective and in humanity than it may sound like sometimes. Oh, the Ace of Swords with the Devil and the Lovers. I love this. And look, there's the Queen of Wands again from a different deck. So it feels like the difference between the Lovers and the Devil is knowing. But it's like sometimes there are things that we don't want to know. Like we can intentionally keep ourselves in the dark on some things because we don't want to know that what we believe may be true actually is true because of whatever it might mean. Um, so sometimes we do intentionally, and that energy was, I felt the energy heavy when the node shifted into Gemini and Sagittarius. where we intentionally veil ourselves from some things because of what that truth might mean. And then, we call Neptune the planet of illusion and deception and stuff. A lot of times we do it to ourselves. Where's Neptune in your chart? What's transiting your Neptune? Look, the Ace of Swords and the Queen of Wands at the cut after I've been shuffling this. I'll leave them like that because that comes in 2 boxes. So with the Queen of Wands, so the Sun. The Sun and the Queen of Wands. And the Sun with the Queen of Wands, for me, it reiterates the Queen of Wands with the Page of Cups, where it's more about expressing, it's more about embodying, it's more about being that Queen of Wands energy. And it's less about scaling all of that back. Which can be, sometimes for the Queen of Wands, it's like, maybe be a little less hot. And the Queen of Wands is like, what? Have you seen me? I can't be any less attractive if I tried. When I do try, it has the opposite effect. And I'm still even more attractive than I was before. So. Come on. Ooh, the Star. I got to cut this in half to put it in the box. The Sun and the Star. Love that energy. Love that energy. The 8 of Cups is now at the bottom. Where's that Queen of Wands? Where the Queen of Wands at? Where did she go? Hello? Hold up. Oh, it was this way? I'm confused. Now it's the Sun and the 8 of Cups. Oh, the Queen of Wands is in the box. She's still in the box. There she is. So the 8 of Cups is behind the Queen of Wands, which I like. I was supposed to do it the other way. I like that because, again, I feel like it reiterates that page energy where it's like maybe there was a lot of diminishing one's own light that happened to be more palatable or to fit in and to not be an outsider or whatever. And, if that's what you had to do when you were in that phase of your life, then I would never demean anybody, I guess, for doing what they needed to do to survive at that point in life, because life ain't easy. Ooh, the Knight of Wands with the Ace of Swords. Not everybody, though, is necessarily... All truths aren't universal. And so it feels like the Knight of Swords has a lot of gusto when it comes to this 8 of Wands, or when it comes to that Ace of Swords. And, not everybody is necessarily going to listen. And just because someone else's truth isn't your truth, or just because your truth isn't someone else's truth, doesn't necessarily mean that they're an idiot. You know what I mean? Maybe they are an idiot. We're all idiots in some way, fashion, and regard. No one of us knows absolutely everything. So, I don't know. Oh, well, thank you, Twitty. I tried. An astrology report you ran said you were weird AF. Yeah, Neptune is in Sag in the 8th house. And in what? I don't know what that is. Oh, I mean, oh my gosh, my Neptune is in Capricorn too. Oh, it's a typo. Okay. I don't know. I don't know. That's how you feel about what stuff. I hope you get to feeling better though. Ooh, this is one of my favorite Nine of Wands cards. I love this Knight of Wands. She is not wounded. She could go all day. You know what I mean? She's like, I got more fight in me. How long are you going to last? Because if you slip up, if you get a little bit too tight, I'm gonna take you out. And the bottom of like the cut, the Page of Pentacles is on the other side. Oop, not in reverse. The Page of Pentacles is upright. The Page of Pentacles and the Nine of Wands together, especially these two, it feels like the strength and the courage to believe in something and to keep putting energy into it, even when it doesn't seem like it's going to come to pass. And it makes me think of the stars that hold light until the sun rises. Look, there's the Six of Swords, that Six of Zones with this. And so with the Six of Zones, it's a space where, because there's a harmony that we reach within the self, and because we allow things to be, it's like a two-part energy. First is a harmony within the self. Second is an allowance for things to be. It brings about this energy that causes the world around us to come into balance in some way, or to begin balancing in a lot of ways naturally. But I mean, that the energy right there, like that's it, right? At the six, it feels like everything else comes into a balance and harmony, but it kind of stems from within, but also there's an allowance. Like it isn't forced on anything else. Um, oh, okay, well. Um, so the Page of Pentacles came out, and the bottom of the deck is the Five of Swords. Five of Swords is interesting. There are five swords and five fairies. There's a dragonfly. The swords are pointing to the head. Oh, snap. Hold up. Oh, this energy is interesting. Yeah, the Sun, Jupiter, and Neptune are all in Pisces. Fun times. Fun times. Wait, with human design being based on birth, to you it's more evidence of people wanting to hand over their inner work to destiny instead of facing the reality of their experiences. You think you were put off by human design a bit because you're the person who suggested it. Because the person who suggested it said they found that more useful than Enneagram, which is based on your childhood and your psychological experience. Ariel. Well, I think for different people, different things work. You know what I mean? And especially that's why, like, when it comes to talking about trauma and resolving trauma, and to get to a point in a space where we can make choices and decisions that aren't based upon traumas that we've experienced, like I also have to keep in mind that, like, my trauma is could be extremely light compared to some other people's. And so almost in a very hierophantic way, I almost want to say, like, I don't want to use the word salvation, but salvation is the word that comes to mind. And maybe it's just like different people find salvation in different things. Um, and in that, it feels like eventually we'll work to and we'll work through the things that we need to work to and through. But our path may be different in the way, the things that we approach along the way, like the order of approach may be different at the same time. Um, And so that's why, like, I know there are like a lot of people who are into a lot of stuff that I wouldn't find necessarily as effective for me. And even when I talk about, because I've talked about like energy healing and stuff like that before, and it's like, it's not that it isn't effective, but it feels like there comes a point in time where we have to face certain things. And so if we use something to substitute facing, like you said at the end of that, um, when it comes to like doing the inner work and facing the reality of the experience, um, it's like there are things that need to be that are going to have to be worked through eventually, because you can only triage and band-aid and replace ever so often, or like it's only so effective. And then just like anything else, maybe the energetic body builds up a tolerance. So it's like, man, like this energy healing isn't lasting as long as it used to, or it's not hitting as deep. I need this, I need that, I need this other thing. Um, and it feels like, because I'm looking at this Five of Swords, and I've never noticed, but it like the antenna on that dragonfly, it's enough to stop all five of those swords. Just the antenna. And it feels like these are energies that are kind of sort of like rushing in to try to help, but this dragonfly doesn't need any help. Um, but I don't it makes me think of like sacred spaces within the self that others aren't necessarily privy to, be able to touch or reach or experience. And different people may have like different levels of access, or different people may be depending on like permission and stuff like that. But it feels like just like that self-love, like self-love is something that we have to give to ourselves. It's something that nothing else can give to us. And so we can be in situations where we experience extremely abundant amounts of love from everyone around us, but there's still something within the self that aches. And it's because of those things, again, that we don't give to ourselves that nothing else can give us. And then maybe that's how sometimes, you'll hear people be like, oh, but they were so happy. They had everything they wanted. Like they were so loved by everybody. We don't know how or why. And sometimes it is the root of things that we experienced previously in our lives that never really get healed, to the point where they just sort of like fester and they grow and they deepen maybe as we grow and evolve. And it becomes these as we, and it's almost, it can be, I guess, in that sense, it's like the more love and abundance you experience, it's almost like it can deepen that chasm, because it increases the, because it's like it's already so low. So as you go higher, it increases that distance and it makes it feel even like more of a whatever. I don't know where I'm getting with this. Um, but yeah, I think with anything, it can be about the approach though, too. So you're more alone these days, but feeling more content. I feel like, well, no, I don't know. I think because when I was watching Rhea's Spirit and Soul, when I was watching her um High Priestess video, I think it was the first one, because I think she's done a second one. And I think I watched that one, but my brain can't recall right now. Um I know I watched that one, but I can't remember. Anyway, watching the first one, when it made me think of like how I relate to myself now. And it made me think of like how I understand myself. And I think in a lot of ways, I've kind of sort of reached the point where I've stopped trying. and I just allow myself to be. And I approach myself with an understanding of the things that I've already experienced and how I was changed by those experiences, and how there were things that I gave less because of, for example, the people who number one, they could only take what they could take. And there were things that it was not for me to give to those people. And so I had to understand that, like, and I have this amazing friend, amazing friend who's really good at boundaries, who's really good at communicating his boundaries. And like early-ish in our friendship, yeah, early in our friendship, he was like, I know that like you care about me and you want to be there for me, but if I tell you I'm okay, like I need you to accept that. Like I don't want to talk about this. And I was like, okay, like I get that. Been there. I don't necessarily want to talk about everything with everybody. You know what I mean? And sometimes, I do like to process whatever first, and I like to go through it because for a while, I didn't really trust anybody to handle me when I was like raw, because I process things in a whole bunch of ways and from sometimes different perspectives. And anyway, um, but so that was one thing I was like, oof, wow, maybe I shouldn't be as like, and I feel like I would say for a minute, I was like, that really like effed up my empathy because I was like, oh, can't do this, can't do that. But also understanding where he sort of was. And our relationship now is completely different, not completely different, but it's interesting because he told me about some stuff not too long ago. And I had that moment of like, wow, like this is something that he's sharing with me that before, like if I would have asked, he would have asked me not to pry. And some of that stuff, it comes with um time. It's built as trust is built. And we had literally known each other for a few months at that point. But we were both sort of sensitive in that way. Um, And so now I kind of sort of find myself in a space of being more compassionate and being more caring and not prying. Um, but it's like it's accepted and it's appreciated. And so now it's like, oof, I didn't understand how much that experience, like how much I had to adapt to that experience. But at the same time, different things are it's like it's going to be different levels for different people, and it's no judgment on anybody if they don't want me to like be like if they're sensitive. Some people are just a little bit more secluded, and I don't have to make any like this person is that, this person is that, blah blah blah, whatever. Like it doesn't have to be that. It's an acknowledgement and a respect for the boundaries that somebody holds, and if that's a boundary for somebody, I'm going to respect that boundary. And if the boundary is different from somebody else, like I'm going to also respect that boundary. It's giving where it's appropriate to give. And that's, I guess, one of the ways that I'm learning that. So it did take me not like super long, and not that I've necessarily completely mastered that. Um, I think I'm also learning at the same time to compassion and interconnectedness is something that's been like a heavy focus, I guess, for me for a minute. But I'm having a Saturn return in my 11th house. So I feel like it's not completely outside of the realm of the things that I should be learning right now. Should be learning right now. um, but there's also the time and the experience of like me being overly compassionate and overly understanding with a certain individual in my life who I've talked about enough on this channel. Um, and I was talking to somebody else and I was like, I don't like not being compassionate, but I can't be compassionate to the point where I allow someone else to treat me like this. And so now I've reached the point where it's like I have drawn from the well of compassion that I have for you, and you have drawn it dry. So I can still be understanding, but sorry about your girl. I can't care. I don't care. This is something that you got to work out within you. I just so happen to be the person that is whatever. So let's do this. If you want to do this, let's do this. The tower and the chariot are my birth cards. I will be your tower if you want me to be. I tried to be the chariot where we could be harmoniously move forward together. But if you want me to be your tower, I will be your tower. I've already worked through accepting that part of my energy. I will do this for you. And you will come out of this a better person. I'm just playing. Kind of. But it is interesting. Um, yeah. But I think like for me, because self-love was something that I got the opportunity to learn like March, April, May, June, like 2020. 2020, it gave me the opportunity to start learning self-love, but it's like I learned self-love in a way where it's like the love for self doesn't necessarily overpower the love for others. And for me, self-love was adding myself to the equation. For me, self-love wasn't subtracting other things or other people to bring everything sort of down. It was about elevating myself to also be a priority and to also, hold space in my heart as I'm holding space for everything and everybody else. And so when that balance, like when it falls out of balance, that's when it's like, okay, well, I got to have that compassion and understanding, and I got to love and care for myself right now. So, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to not allow you to just treat me like this. And I don't think that person was ready. I don't know what. Oh, look, the hermit. The hermit. Oh, and the chariot. The hermit and the chariot under the five of swords at the bottom of the deck with our friend, the page of cups under that. So your birth card is the lovers. I think you add up all the numbers in your birthday. And then if it's over 21, if you Google it, it'll pop up like birth cards. Cause let's see. I think that's how I did it. So 7. Wait, is it the same as life path? Hold up. I don't even think I pieced that together, but yeah, it's the same. It's the same. I never even knew it. So if you're a life path 9, that would make you the moon and the hermit. I think if you're a life path, because so one of them gets 3. It's like the magician, the wheel of fortune, and the sun. But I feel like the world, the because those are all numerological ones: the magician, the wheel of fortune, and the sun. And then your numerological twos, it's the high priestess, justice, and judgment. And then your numerological threes are the empress, the hanged man, and the world. But when I was looking up birth cards, it was like I think I saw that the magician, the wheel of fortune, and the sun were the only one that had 3 birth cards. And I was like, well, how does the other ones break down? I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, yes. So that's one of the things I've been learning. I've also been, and it's so interesting because it was 2019 when I met a Sag through an Aries that I thirst followed. I thirst followed somebody on Snapchat. but that's not how I use my Snapchat. And so I like never even looked at that person's stories. But then after I started, it was the end of like 2018. And after I was starting my journey, I think it was that December, I saw him meditating to Abraham Hicks on his story. And I was like, what? And then I was hearing like what law of attraction, manifestation, the vortex, and just the vibe of it. I was like, okay, like what's going on over here? So I sent him a message. I was like, hey, like who is this? And he was like, oh, it's Abraham Hicks. She's amazing, blah, 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 blah. So that's what started me on. No, because I was already watching somebody else before that. So some of the language was similar between the two of them. And that's why I was like, who is this? What is this about? The language is similar, but it seems to play out in different ways. But again, I feel like that's very much how like the person and the people who show up to the Hierophant in congregation determines how that Hierophantic energy plays out. Because both individuals are, I feel like they're linked and connected and tapped into the same space, but it's the conversations that happens as a result of the people who approach those people that kind of sort of make those energies feel like they diverge in ways. And it's not because of them, it's because of what they get asked. Anyway, um, and so he introduced me to, well, he shared this Sagittarius dude who was doing tarot readings, and I was still new at that point. But anyway, he's the reason why I got back into my birth chart, got back into astrology, because I had printed my birth chart before. I didn't understand it, so I left it. I abandoned it. And then he was talking about it, and again, I was in a space now. I was more curious. And so I was like, oh, like, and then he was like, oh, I'm still learning astrology myself. I was like, oh, so you can't teach me? Okay. But he was like, I can get you your chart. You can look it up, like how I'm looking it up. And so there was this one website that I went to, and it broke the month down into weeks or something. And I was born in, it was zest. The thing for me was zest. I was like, zest. I don't feel like a particularly zesty individual. I don't go nowhere. I don't do nothing. I don't talk to nobody. I'm literally in my room all day. Now meditating and playing game. Well, no. Then I was like meditating, watching YouTube videos. I'm like doing little self readings. When I like the start of my journey was crazy. I would sit through the full 2 to 3 hours YouTube binaural beat in meditation and do headspace, like the introduction beginner's course on top of that. And when I first started Headspace, I was like, ooh, let me do like the 2 minute or 5 minute meditation because 10 or 15 or whatever, that sounds like a lot. But then I was like, this is not long enough. I cannot meditate like that now. And it's not like I'm not in the same point and position that I am. So, I mean, I guess if I had to, I probably could. Or if I really needed to, I probably could. But it doesn't call me. I don't need it in the same ways that I needed it then. Because I had a lot of work to do in the beginning. A lot of work. I feel like that's just kind of sort of my life in general. It's like I am different than I used to be because I would tell people how I was in elementary school. The first time I got suspended, I was in kindergarten. When I tell people about elementary school for me, they're like, "What? You? I don't believe it, but you're so mellow. You're so chill." I was like, "Yeah, girl, depression will do it to you. Depression saved my life." In some ways and just wrecked it in others. And now I am coming to the point where I can reconcile all. So basically, long story short, I'm getting back to the zest. And when I was in elementary school, I think I was so short tempered and so fiery, especially considering everything that happened after elementary school. Like my openness to people and to life and to experiences. And like, I used to be extremely extroverted. Like, if there was a new kid in class, I would be their first friend because I'm like, I don't want you to be lonely. And then they would get, they would find their place. And I think for me, there was a point in time where it was like, I feel like whenever I reach out to somebody, or like whenever I was someone's first friend, they would find their place and then they would leave. Like, we wouldn't be friends anymore. They wouldn't talk to me anymore. And so because of that, because of that and other stuff, I built up walls against people. And when I did my first tarot card reading using the Wild Unknown Tarot, I went to the animal spirits because I was like, I feel more comfortable with animals than I do this stuff I don't know anything about. But when it came to tarot, I was like, I'm gonna do the hardest spread in the book that I can find. So I went for the 10 card Celtic cross, and the star came out with this energy that was like this is for you to do. It's like you are like, I am the person that people would go to when they were low, and I would help, like I would comfort and I would help heal them, and as soon as they were good, they were off. And like, because of that, I had hardened my heart in a lot of ways. But when that came out, it was like, this is one of the things that is just for you to do, girl. And I cried. I was like, what? But what about this person? And what about that person? And when I need people, they're not there for me. They just come and they take and then they abandon me. And the card was like, yeah, well, girl, this is your lot in life. Welcome. Um, but also at the same time, like, when I got into tarot, like, that was my intention. My intention was to see the things within myself that I couldn't see so that I could get out of the space that I was in. Um, and I think that it also, like, when I read, I think a lot of times that also comes through. And there are some times when it's like, I feel like I might read like a change or a shift or a transition. And there are things that happen in the in between. Um, but anyway, where am I going? That's how I got into tarot. I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't know why I'm talking about this. Um, but I feel like I'm getting back to the zest, basically. Long story short, I saw the Six of Cups. It came out in my yearly thing, my yearly self read. You were thinking about this yesterday. I feel like you built up men to go off and be good to other women. Yeah. Yeah. But I think so too. And maybe this is going back to how I understand myself now. Um, it's like, I understand that that's something that I do for people, and that's something that I can do for people. And so I allow that experience. And at the same time, because of the love for self that I was able to discover, and because of the love from others that I'm now more able to fully accept without all of the walls that I had built up, and because of, I guess, the overall contentness that I have right now, um, that I've like 2020 was a year. It was a year for all kinds of growth and development, personally, interpersonally, and other things built up. But it's like, I don't know. It's like I'm not necessarily looking for the same things from people. And now, because I have lived a little bit more life, it's like there are things that I can give to people when they're in a certain space that I wouldn't necessarily want to receive from those people, if that makes sense. Um, and it's like, if someone has a lot of guards or issues or traumas in a certain section, area, sector of their own life that influences and impacts them in ways where it might affect their ability to give me sound and solid advice, I'm not going to go to that person for advice or for guidance in that area. And so, just like how, and maybe this is a little bit of the, was it the Three of Pentacles? No, the Seven of Pentacles. I think this is a little bit of the Seven of Pentacles for me. Like all of these different experiences that I've had since I started my journey with different people, just like the friend I talked about who expressed his boundaries to me. You know, it's like, it's kind of sort of like the same thing. Like, this is what I want from like you and from our friendship. These are things that are like more personal or private. These are things that I don't want to talk about. And it's a boundary that you can respect or you can respect. And he didn't have that tone, but I was like, thank you for communicating a boundary to me because you are someone who, like, I would like to continue to get to know. You're someone who I would like to continue to develop this friendship with. And I would rather you tell me this boundary than for you to not communicate this boundary and secretly not like me because I push and pry when you don't want that. You know what I mean? And that's something I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you for communicating this boundary. And also because of him, I mean, I would say because of him, I've gotten better at communicating boundaries. But at the same time, if I think about it, I'm like, when do I communicate boundaries? Do I ever? I have communicated boundaries, honestly. Well, maybe not in the same way. It might be a little bit more like Queen of Swords, Queen of Wands, and her shadow. Like, this is a hard boundary for me. Cross it at your own risk. I will cut you out and not even look back. I've done it before. This was my trauma response. I've mastered this. Now I can use this in a non traumatic environment, but I will cut you out with a quickness. And you will think I never cared about you. Well, meanwhile, like the Pisces side of me is like, oh, I wonder how this person is doing. I wonder how they're doing. I hope they're doing well. I hope they're getting everything in life that they want. But at the same time, I can't do that again. I refuse to do that again. I'm not doing that to myself. I love myself too much now. So, but I hope they're well. Anyway, and it's like I feel like it's because I've reached this point that I don't feel like I have to like understand myself so much, maybe, or that I don't have to be so much. Um, where I can just sort of like allow and not have to question everything. Um, but at the same time, where I'm open to like learning and growing and stuff. I had a point to that. It got lost. Kinda. But yeah. You had a friend like that and you were respecting their boundaries, but they kept overstepping their own with you, then telling you they were still afraid of you overstepping. You breaking down your own boundaries. I'm just here. Oof. But maybe it's because it's like when you got that good energy, when you got that good energy, and when you got that good heart, and when you like, I feel like sometimes like people come our way that are more comfortable with us than they're comfortable with. And I've had people in my own life. I've had people who I was extremely guarded, well isolated, and for some reason, my Virgo best friend is one of them. Well, one of my Virgo best friends, because I got a few. Anyway, um, she was one of those people. My Aries best friend was one of those people. My other Aries best friend, I guess. No, I met her when I was open to being open. So it's not necessarily the same in her case, but even when I was like on like maximum security mode, there were people in my life who were still able to penetrate that and to get to the core of me. Thankfully so, because when I was in real dark times, I needed somebody, and those were people. Every time I've needed someone, I've had somebody there, and I've needed people in very different ways. And I've found, interestingly enough, whenever I needed, like really needed somebody to be there, it seems like more often than not, it was someone who I had met and connected with recently. Almost like the reason why we met and connected was so they could see me through that specific dark point. And it's not like we never talked after that, but and so I guess in a way, if I was that for other people and there were people who were that for me, then it balanced out. You know what I mean? In a way, maybe. I don't know. You're very familiar with max security mode, yeah. Oof. Um but yeah, and so it's like I think sometimes, like you said, Shayna, it's like sometimes people can like drop their own guard and drop their own boundaries with certain individuals, and it might be more than they're comfortable with because of the things that they're still affected by, or because of the things that they're still healing through. And then sometimes, depending, it's like that can get directed on you. And like you said, like, I'm just here. Like, I'm not asking you any questions. I'm not pressing or prying. You're sharing. And I feel like it would be rude if I said you're oversharing. I feel like you wouldn't necessarily take it well. But you the one out here doing this and saying this. I'm not, I'm just here. I'm just a kind soul that happened upon your experience until you exhaust that kindness, and then I will be the coldest person you've ever met. But that's the duality that I play and that I accept within me. With my Pisces sun and my algal moon. I'm just playing. You can build the fastest wall in the West. Oh, that's hilarious. Like, want to see me build a wall? Like, whoa, where did they go? They just disappeared. It's like, this is an instant fortress. If I hear one thing that's even remotely of concern, oof, been there, did that. And I feel like, again, like with that Seven of Pentacles energy, that was the Seven of Pentacles, the Hangman, and the Tower. I mean, like outside of that, I've found moments in my life where I've had to like really enforce a boundary, where I've had to communicate a boundary and then enforce it. And if a boundary is continuously violated, where I gotta cut it off. And then I remember when I was first in the habit, or like when I was first in the practice of that, I did think to myself, I was like, I used to do something very similar as a trauma response, or I used to do something because like I would just like be over it. I wouldn't really give people a chance to do whatever. And I would just cut them off and I wouldn't look back. But then I reached that moment when I was like, but what's motivating this is different. This is different. This isn't something that I'm doing because I'm trying to protect myself from getting to know somebody that, you know, has a way of stepping beyond the boundaries that I put up with people. This is different than someone who is so completely self centered that they will try to monopolize my time or energy in ways that are not great and expect me to just do whatever. Like, this is different. This is something that I'm doing out of respect, out of whatever for me. And for the betterment of the other individual, because like neither one of us are going to thrive in this situation, and eventually it's just going to lead to not great feelings from the both. Oh snap, it's Rob. Rabu. The switch gave you whiplash. Oof. But yeah, so, and I think that's another thing that really helped me 2020 when I got super hot. When it got super hot and super fiery and super dry. And I was like, where's my water? I miss my water and my earth. I'm tired of being air and fire. um, and even more recently than that, it's just like I've had enough experiences where I've had to be on the spectrum of energy given from absolutely nothing to more. And because I've gotten the opportunity to, because I did it in not the healthiest ways before, and because I've learned to do it in healthier ways now, again, motivated by reasons, it's like all of that together. It's like I don't crave understanding myself and being able to explain things the way I used to. I don't necessarily need acceptance and community from people in ways that I used to desire it. It's like I don't want to be alone, but I've learned to be content with it. I've always been the type of person where I'd rather be alone than be in the company of somebody that I don't like. Even if I'm miserable by myself, I'm not going to be miserable with somebody else because that's at least a misery that I can take care of. Bye. I would say it was nice knowing you, but honestly, who you are as a person, I can get down with. How you treated me and how you treated some other people, that's the reason why this isn't going to work. But I still wish you the best. Um, Hot girl summer, you know it. Catch me in Scotland. Oh, 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 hold up. Hold up. Where did it go? I didn't think I heard it hit the floor. Oh, there it goes. It hit the floor. Um, but yeah, so that's, I don't know. It's just some of the reason why I've noticed that I don't, it's not that I don't care, but I don't know. They're not things that I'm as concerned about anymore. 61, I'll take it. So the final dice roll is a 61. The one fell on the floor. 61 would be the devil and the magician. How traumas manifest traumas. Yeah, the traumas manifest in traumas. um, let me see. Let me see which one this is. Oh, this is the scholar. So this is the energy of the Knight of Swords, which is interesting because we had the Six of Swords earlier, but it's the Scholar of Zones. And the Scholar of Zones, scholars for me, it sits in the space of a knight, and it's like a working apprenticeship. It's like internship. Yeah. So it's like, you do your school, you get your education, and then you do your internship. And on at the internship, ideally, you are you're in a situation where you can see how everything that you've learned plays out in real life. You can see it in real time. You can observe the application of the information, but at the same time you're still learning. And so it's not a space of pure application where you've already learned everything. It's about applying it, and it's not a space of pure learning where you're disconnected from the reality of that information and how that information plays out, or whatever. It's that sweet spot in the middle. Hopefully it's a paid internship. Hopefully we're doing more than just getting coffee. um But even if we're just getting coffee, you know, if you bring in the coffee to the meetings and you can catch little bits and pieces of conversation and anything, there's something to be learned. And it almost takes me back to your entire life has been a working internship. Oops. You were born in 61? I think my dad was born in 61. So his, was it Saturn and Jupiter are both in Capricorn? Wait, I think you said that. I think you said your Saturn and Jupiter are in Capricorn. And I was like, oh, my dad's Saturn and Jupiter are in Capricorn. Um, there's an interesting pivot point in this though, because this is the intersection of the Knight of Swords being flanked by the Magician and the Devil, or it's the trifecta. It's these the Knight of Swords energy, the Magician energy, and the Devil energy, and it feels like a pivot point because there's the emphasis on previous education. There's the emphasis on things that you've learned in the past, and you're seeing how that applies, but with the energy of still learning, with you being an apprentice or an intern and not being the master, it carries an energy of being less indoctrinated. And it's like you haven't built your entire career upon one thing. And if that one thing were to be questioned, then it's almost like my entire career is in question. Um, and so it's like it's beyond a page, and it's not yet a king or queen. And so it feels more like a question of, and the devil doesn't even necessarily have to be anything. Well, that's more of a hierophant than a devil. So no. Um, but it feels more like a question of like, are you going to continue this thing that might not be great? Or are you going to create or embark in a new direction? Or are you going to apply the knowledge in a different direction? Or are you going to increase the scope of application? Especially if there was something that was like cherry picked and then overly emphasized while blatantly and obviously or not so obviously neglecting and rejecting other things that are also known to be true. That almost reminds me of the Five of Wands that was sitting at the bottom of the Mystical Manga Tarot that had two wands in one hand and three wands in the other hand. It's like, do you start something new or do you continue this thing? And I don't think everything necessarily has to face a tower in the way where it needs to be like collapsed to the foundation. I think some things can be renovated. I think some things can be reimagined. I think some things can be repurposed. And in that reading, it all came down to you, us, the self. And it's the self more so than the choices. And going off of what I've already talked about and what I've shared with me, it might be like what motivates those choices. Because again, it's like two people can make the same choice, but for vastly different reasons. And they do say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But I think it kind of sort of plays back into the Queen of Wands needing to not be so self-centered and self-focused that she has no consideration for anyone around her. Going back to the King of Pentacles with the Five of Swords and the Three of Cups. I think another interpretation of the Five of Swords and the Three of Cups is sometimes discussion and deliberation are going to be required. Like life is going to ask us to make hard choices sometimes. And it feels like, especially sitting between or with the devil energy being here, It's like sometimes if we dedicate a little bit more thought, even if the conversations and discussions are heated, if there's a level of respect for people as individuals, for experiences, and for, a lot more things. And if there's a level of um, like meeting that is happening rather than sticking to one's viewpoint, um, it's like through that process, a solution could be found that benefits more, if not all. But it's like it's not the time to make the easy choice and the easy decision because of the future that is being birthed right now. Going back to the Ace of Coins that came out with, it was the King of Swords then, but we're sitting at the Knight here. So it does, again, it makes it feels like something that isn't necessarily completely finished. It's not necessarily set in stone. And sometimes it is the one person who has that perspective, who sees that one thing that no one else is seeing, who, when they speak up, now they make everyone aware. And because everyone is aware, a more, I want to say, amiable solution can be found. But if that one person who sees it doesn't say anything, then it gets neglected. And it's not necessarily neglected intentionally in that case. And it's not necessarily neglected out of malice in that case. It's just that, like, nobody had the thought, no one was aware. And so I think there is also something in this energy that is about learning. It's like learning when and how to speak up. Because I think also with this, there is another side of this energy where it's like if we are used to constantly speaking and constantly putting our opinion out there, maybe it's to learn to listen and to be more open-minded and considerate of the things that other consider of the worries and concerns of other people. Again, to make a more amiable solution. And that has been a thread in this. It's to make choices and decisions that benefit more than just the self. And again, it's like it's not that we're not concerned or worried about ourselves at all, but it's about that, I guess, a balance or a harmony. That was that six of zones. Um, it's interesting because the 61 is also the reverse of the 16 tower. Um, but that feels more like a controlled demolition tower. It feels like a tower that is deliberate. Um, in the way of like it's a decision that's reached. Like, yes, we're gonna move in a different direction, so we're gonna transition our assets into business. I don't know. But it's like, again, it's not starting from scratch, it's starting over from experience. And so there's also something within this scholar of zones that is understanding the interconnectedness between the experience and everything that motivates the experience. Um, being like feelings and interpersonal relationships, and also like ambition and drive, um, and balancing and managing the self and the universe. Again, on that web that maybe some of us are reintegrating into. And it's like reintegrating is interesting because it's in some ways we can never not be a part of it. But in other ways, if we're a part of it, that drains and leeches and sucks all of the life out of everything around us to maintain and preserve an isolationistic viewpoint, then maybe it's a part of it that it remains disconnected, even though it is a piece of it. But that gets back into the perception of the experience and how, as humans, perception is so much of so much. So, anyway, did not necessarily expect 2.5 hours, but here we are. Thank you, Rob. I don't remember what I said, but thank you. So, the last 2 weeks you've been keeping to yourself because speaking up a lot wasn't helping. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, eventually, it's like, at what point do you just like walk away? Or what point do you say, at what point do we accept it? And what does that acceptance mean or look like? Does that acceptance mean that we just continue to be there and not speak? Or does that acceptance mean that we find an environment that is more suitable? I don't know. A bunch of you questions, a bunch of us questions, a bunch of what we personally allow. I think that exists in the realm of personal allowance. Um, and the realm of personal allowance is interesting when we talk about all of this. But is there any area, facet, aspect of life that is simple? I don't know. Well, I don't think simple is the word. Simple in terms of limited in scope, not simple in terms of complexity. Is there any part of life that doesn't influence, impact, or shape other parts of life? Who knows? So, anyway, thank you all for being here. This was an experience. It wasn't a bad experience. I wouldn't mind having this. Well, I don't know about this exact experience again, but again, I feel like this is kind of sort of bringing together a few things that have been streams and threads along what's been coming out on this channel for me. But it feels like a very interesting space that we're coming upon. And it feels like soft destiny. And soft destiny, it's feeling like a moment or a time of change and transition. Like it feels like there are maybe some certain like hard destiny aspects. Like there are some things that might just happen. But soft destiny feels like moments in time, in life, in a lived experience, where certain choices and decisions really have the power to influence, shape, and impact our lives in very, very big ways. And it feels soft because it's chosen. And it's not necessarily chosen for us. Now, if we're still bound to the past in ways that there are choices that we would never make or choices that we're incapable of making because of, and it doesn't even have to be the past. Sometimes we can be bound to a future that we desire so bad that we don't allow for anything to occur or happen that we see as not leading to that future directly. Um, Basically, like we may feel that those choices are being made for us when in reality, some of those choices we make, we just don't. Maybe we don't know why. Maybe we do know why. Maybe we don't feel empowered to make another choice. But that goes back to again the Seven of Pentacles, the Hangman, and the Tower that came out the time before last. It's the things that transpire in our lives, and it's the way that we feel when those things happen, where we make a choice and decision where it's like this is something that I'm not going to allow to continue to influence and impact me in these ways, where I continue to have the same experience, maybe in different flavors, maybe for different periods of times if it's cyclic. I was like, yeah, but or like you want something new. I feel like I kind of lost that train of thought partially. But like it feels like that's also a point of soft destiny. It's the moment, it's like the shortcut. Um, where it's like almost with that Knight of Swords energy, where it's like things can be on a certain trajectory, but at some point we can speak up or we can make a choice or decision to go in a different way. So maybe it's almost like if destiny was a ligament. Is that the word I want? No, a limb. If destiny were a limb and we have bones and we have ligaments and tendons and soft spots on the in between, it's like this is hard destiny, but there are many soft spaces in this where, like, I don't know, maybe my arm could go that way. And it's this fluid motion. It's this fluid movement. You know what I mean? It's not robot that doesn't even bend at the arms. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, who knows? Depends what you're into. Oh my gosh. When you make the right choice for you, you get hit with the softer destiny. Ooh, I love that, Renz. You might have made more cash as hard destiny. Eve. Soft destiny was my stripping name. Oof, that's hilarious. Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to go back to London. London was like it was one of my favorite cities. Cuz it had like big city vibes. Like it's a major city, but it didn't feel like it in that way. Um it felt very like homey, if that makes sense. I don't know. I don't know. Squishy destiny. There you go. Squishy destiny. In between soft and hard. Malleable. Uh, okay. So with that, I hope you all have a good whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. And but Dublin was see, I wanted to go to Ireland too. Lumpy destiny. Ah, I was like, either because I told my buddy, I was like, I want to go to like Scotland and Ireland. And he was like, oh, well, my fiance wants to go to both of those places. So you could just come when we're all here or when she comes. And I was like, yeah, but like, don't you want to spend time with your fiance? Because she's in Canada, he's in the UK. So anyway, I'll have to make it to Ireland someday. Hopefully, I'll see Amanda while I'm over there. Um, but anyway, I hope you all are having a good whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to see and experience your reality. And I hope you the it's almost like sensitivity. What is that? Do you know when it's like when you get a feeling? Let's call it intuition because it feels like that makes or not even intuition. It doesn't, it feels like it's a branch of intuition. Y'all know that like that real subtle intuition where you just like look in a direction and you don't know why. Nothing particularly calls you to that direction. It's not like, oh, look over there. You just kind of sort of like glance in a direction and you notice something. Like I wish that for you wherever you need it, if that makes sense. I don't know. Okay. All right. Bye.